Ladies, gentlemen, we have LaToya Morgan in the house. I love LaToya. Known her for many a year. We can't figure out how long we've known each other for, but it's been a while. LaToya, correct me if I mess up any of your credits or your intro here, and I won't read off too much right now, but there's a lot. LaToya is a television screenwriter and comic book writer, actually. She's written on series such as Shameless, Turn, Into the Badlands, The Walking Dead. I know those off the top of my head. She's also working on something coming up with J.J. Abrams, which we'll touch on.
Yep.
And she's also written Robyn Hood, The Hunt for Zenescope, which is most important credit. So it's our Robyn Hood month, so we wanted to bring on LaToya as our star creator this month, and for all you aspiring creators out there listening, this is just an awesome person to hear from, and I mean that sincerely. I would take a lot of what she says and follow whatever she tells you to do.
That's a good intro. Thank you.
Welcome, LaToya.
Thank you so much.
So I want to ask you this first and foremost. What was LaToya Morgan like growing up?
Oh my God! Wow. I mean, as a kid, I was really just a nerdy little girl. I just was really into books and reading. Like for my birthday, I would literally ask my mom to buy me books. And she would be like, "You don't want something else?"
I think you told me this before.
Yeah.
Don't you want anything?
This book's okay. That's where my love of comic books, my love of Stephen King came from.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like your favorite authors growing up. I was exposed to Stephen King very early, too early probably, because my sister, who's older, was a fan.
Yeah.
You too?
Yeah, I love Stephen King. I should not have been reading those books.
Right.
I especially loved his short story collections. So The Skeleton Crew, 4 Seasons, like all those things. I would literally go into my little brother's room, and when I would get to the scary parts, I would read them with him next to me because I was terrified. And I'd be like, all right, if something's coming to get us, it's gonna get both of us, not just me.
Right. I don't want to die alone. What? I didn't read it. I haven't still not read it, because I was so freaked out about that concept of it. But I read the first books I read, and I'm sure you read these early on. The Bachman books, with The Long Walk.
Yeah. 4 Past Midnight.
Running Man too, which was my favorite. Then they made the movie, which was no.
You didn't like Running Man movie?
No.
What? No, that's a classic. That is a classic.
But you read the book before the movie, I assume, no? Or did you?
No, I've never read the book Running Man, but I've seen the movie. And it's not, there's part of it that's super cheesy, but I don't know. It stands the test of time, man. Just Schwarzenegger, taking on all the gladiators.
You don't understand. You don't understand, though. I read the book. I was maybe 12. It was the first Stephen King exposure I had to him, maybe early on, or one of the first books. So I loved The Running Man. I was like, wow, this is blew my mind. And then I loved Schwarzenegger. Everything lined up. The stars aligned in my young mind to go see this movie. Oh my God, my favorite book by my favorite actor. And then the movie was nothing like the book, and I was so disappointed. And if they really should remake The Running Man.
Well, what is so different about it? It's the same concept, right?
They made a game show. It's not a game show in the book. He's out in the world. They basically, it's more. What was that movie with Ice-T? They hunt the dude. Do you know what I'm talking about? Surviving the Game. That's it. Okay. Surviving the Game. It was more like that. It was more gritty. It wasn't this game show in the future. It was a game show.
Oh, you wanted more grit. You wanted
less
Hunger Games, more grit.
Yeah, but actually Hunger Games would probably be a better comp than what they did. But they let him out, they put him out into the regular world to be hunted. It wasn't really, I haven't read it in a long time, but it wasn't you were on, in the movie they put him on skates. And they did that hockey scene. That wasn't in the book. What the hell what are we doing? Anyway, we're off
Look,
topic.
the movie is built to give like Schwarzenegger, make him shine, give him his
I,
one-liners.
I know. It was not, but if you went back and read that book,
Yeah, probably. No, you're probably
you'd be
right.
like, oh, okay, I see.
I mean, but like, wasn't Jesse the Body Ventura in Running Man?
He was in Predator. Was he in Running Man too?
I'm pretty
He
sure.
might have been. He might.
And then like that, whoever that dude is who plays Dynamo, he was like, come on. When he had his like his whole entire suit was lit up like Christmas.
There was no Dynamo in
it was
Stephen
so
King's book.
It was so bad, but so good.
I can't believe you remember this. I think I only saw that movie once. Anyway, so you were nerdy. You read a lot of books. When did you start writing, like as a kid, or was it as a kid? Did you start writing older?
No, yeah, I started writing when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. I would write little short stories and little plays, and like some of the plays, I would make my poor brother be in them with me, and we would perform them for my mom. But I was always interested in writing. Like I wrote like this really cheesy, it was a dark and stormy night story when I was a little kid, and I put like a twist ending in. I don't know how I knew to do that, but my mom was very impressed with that. She was like, "Oh my God, it was the most cliche twist. Like it turned out to be all a dream or whatever." But that really, like seeing her be entertained by that was something that really like stuck with me.
Right, kind of fueled your fire to keep going rather than her going, "This stinks." Just look at it. Learn something new.
Yeah, and I'm like really lucky. My mom was always very supportive. She was like, if I scribbled on a piece of paper, she thought it was the most amazing piece of art. So you need someone like that who's very supportive and loving and that is encouraging you.
Luckily, you had talent, because if she was doing that and you weren't very good. I mean, there's that too.
This is true.
I mean, just saying. So why? I guess a question I have is, so you were reading books growing up, a lot of books. Yeah. I assume you were also, like when I was growing up, I was a big movie buff. Like I would watch movies constantly, and that's what drew me first into acting, then eventually trying to get into writing. Yeah. So was your goal as you got older to write? And like, was it, hey, I want to write novels? Was it, no, I know I want to write screenplays? Or was it a little of both?
At the beginning, my lifelong, like 7-year-old dream was to write short story collections like Stephen King. That was what I wanted. And, I was a movie junkie. I watched way too much like cable. I would watch a lot of like old movies, like Turner Classic movies. I would say watching like, those Humphrey Bogart movies and Bette Davis and seeing those credits at the end was, really when I started to notice credits. And every year, we just had one yesterday because it was New Year's Day. They would do the Twilight Zone marathon, and I love Twilight Zone. Like Twilight Zone is my jam. Like probably like the most formative television show for me as a kid. And they would always, put who wrote the episodes and who directed the episodes. And that was when I really started paying attention to credits. And I was like, holy shit, who is this Rod Serling guy? Because he is like
he's a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's coming up with all these brilliant, ideas, and him and Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont probably are like, they formulated the brain that I have today, of just love of emotional storytelling, stories that also have like something, a message behind them, and that are just rich and interesting and that draw you in.
So was your biggest inspiration, would you say was it Stephen King? Was it Rod Serling? Was it a combination of a few people?
Yeah, it was really a combination of them. And then, like I said, I was really, like, as far as like novels and books, like Toni Morrison was probably the other writer that I really love. Like The Bluest Eye is the book that just stayed with me after I read it for years and years. And it was just, such a deeply moving story. That, and I feel like The Grapes of Wrath which is also I probably read way too way too soon. Were the most formative, like that, like a combination, a big hodgepodge of those influences.
Interesting. So you were just a big bookworm.
Well, yeah, and
growing
included in
up,
that,
movie, pop culture, you love movies.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, and included in that is comic books. So
Right.
Spider-Man is probably my first love. Him and the X-Men are just made me want to write comic books.
You were a Marvel girl growing up.
Always a Marvel girl.
And Zenescope, of course. Growing up.
I don't think
LaToya was born in 2010. And she was we were around for 5 years, but
yeah.
So Marvel girl, big comic book. I was not a comic book fan girl. I was told this story before, even though I have I run a comic book, I co-own a comic book publishing company. I was not a comic book fan. I was a fan of a lot of the same people you were, same creators you were. Joe was a big comic book fan. That's how I got into it later when we started first talking about writing a comic together.
So you didn't like comic books at all?
I just didn't have any real exposure to them, to be honest with you. Like growing up, I never got, I don't know why it bypassed me. I mean, like I was a reader and I was into horror, especially. That was my sister's influence. My older sister loved horror and I was into horror and I loved movies, but I never got into comics. And I really didn't know much about the medium until like a couple years before we literally started Zenescope. Like I started the first comic book I ever read was Preacher.
Wow.
Believe it or not, which was, by then we were already kind of starting the ball rolling on trying to write comics. So I needed to read them to learn what the hell I was doing.
So did you have to go back and kind of like go to the backlogs and like educate yourself on like Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman?
Yeah, and I knew my only exposure to those characters at that time was the movies, which I loved. I mean, obviously like Batman movies I loved, but I didn't know any of the, history of Batman, in the comic book realm, which is weird. Yeah, it was weird. And Joe was a super into it. So like he already knew a lot of the characters well. So, but for me, it wasn't as important as just like, hey, I need to learn how to tell a comic book story in a comic. I mean, granted, yeah, you want to learn like, and as I got into it, this isn't my interview, but I'm gonna. As I got into it, I think over the going back and reading stuff from the past got me more into this industry, which now I'm ingrained in and understand, but I didn't come into it from that viewpoint of being a kid growing up.
Right.
And I think that's always it's always different, right? Like when you're a kid and you read or see something as a kid versus when you watch something as an adult, it's just a different experience. If you've seen it already, like even of a movie, like if you see it when you're young and then you see it again, you're like, oh, that movie aged well.
Yeah.
Because it didn't probably, but like we think it did because we remember what it was like when we first watched it. But if you watch a movie that's older for the first time, you're always like, oh, that's, sometimes it just doesn't have that same effect.
You hold on to it more because it's such a part of the fabric of your childhood and it's so important to you. It just makes you a lifelong fangirl in my case.
Right.
Fanboy in yours.
So for people not in or aspiring to be in it, because we probably have both listening, people not in this industry, the film or TV industry, can you kind of just explain what you do? And I know you do. See, but some people may or may not realize is like when you're a TV writer, you're yes, there is the staff writer. You could be a staff writer, and that's usually, I guess, how you start.
Right.
But that's not your only job. I mean, you're usually evolve into a producer of some sort, of some level, which you do now. Can you kind of explain a little bit of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work primarily in television. I do write film as well, but most of my work is in the TV space. And we have a writer's room. And in the writer's room, there is a showrunner who is the boss of the show. And then there are several other writers that also make up the writer's room. So it can be anywhere between, like, smallest room I've been in is like 6 writers. You can even have less than that, and then you could have as many as like 12 or 14.
So what was the smallest room you've ever been in?
The smallest room was Shameless. So
Shameless.
there were
Oh, wow.
6
Okay.
writers. There were 3 drama writers and 3 comedy writers, and I was on team drama.
Okay.
And so there were really wonderful comedy writers like Mike O'Malley, and so oh my god, Alex Borstein, really fantastic comedic minds who would just pitch joke, and it just made that show so damn funny. And so in the writer's room, to get back to your question, you can have the room be as small or as large as you want, but it's really almost like a team. You have a team captain, which is your showrunner, and then each of those writers kind of has a specialty, which is the way that I select the writer's room. Some writers are good with character. Some writers are, better with story and plot points. Some are really new writers, like the staff writer that you mentioned. That's the most inexperienced writer in the room. And you all work together to build a story for whatever your show is. So you have a phase where you kind of think about the big picture, which we call the blue skies part of the breaking story, where everyone's just kind of throwing out ideas, and then you start to drill down on that and see what sticks, and then you break it down per episode. That's pretty much what we do every day in the writer's room.
And your newest show, which we'll touch on soon, that you're on, I guess I don't know if you're on it right now or where you are, but with Duster, I guess it is, right?
Yes.
Now, are you show running that?
Yes.
With JJ?
Yes. Like, okay. I'm the showrunner, like the day-to-day. JJ and I wrote the pilot of the show together, so that was a lot of fun getting to work with him.
Guys, if you don't know who I mean by JJ, I mean JJ Walker.
Different JJ.
JJ Abrams, maybe you heard of him. I don't know if you guys heard of him. I'm gonna name drop for LaToya.
Look, he may have a career. I don't know.
Yeah, he's up and coming. If you haven't heard from him about him, like, you might hear about, like, you might finally like go, oh, okay. So I didn't even realize that you were show running. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's my first time doing it.
This is how much LaToya tells me in my life.
No. I tell you everything.
For 10 years. Don't worry about it.
Stop it. I tell you everything.
Tell you everything.
Yeah, this is the first time that I'm getting to sit in, like, the captain's chair and be the showrunner, which is exciting. After, several years working on shows and working my way up the ladder, and gaining more responsibility along the way. So
and not to go too long on this, but I'm curious, and I'm sure some people are like, you've really, I mean, it does take some time, and everybody's different, of course. You have to really work at your craft, I am assuming, to get to that level over a course of several years sometimes, or in some people's cases, maybe they never get to that point.
Right.
So I think that's just an interesting, I mean, I knew you you were doing some really good stuff already. So it's not like I knew you before you were even a staff writer, but you really, like, worked your ass off to get to where you are. And I think that's a testament to just, like, the drive you have, or somebody has, to get to that level. 'Cause that's huge.
Thank you.
That wasn't really a question. That was just a statement.
No, it's true. I mean, but it is a question in a sense. I get a lot of people think you can just appear. Sometimes you can.
Right.
You just appear, and then you just are given all this responsibility. I think being a showrunner is a very challenging and very time consuming task, and you're trying to juggle a lot of plates and you're trying to do a lot of things at once. And so in order to understand how to do the job, it to me it is I think it's better if you've staffed on shows, if you've moved your way up the ladder, if you know, gained your experience producing, you know, your own episodes. All those things factor into becoming a showrunner, and I think they're like essential to becoming a really good one.
I have a question I'm curious about, because this happens a little bit in comic books, and I think that there are a lot, I mean, on a smaller scale, there's similarities to the room, the concept of a writer's room, and at least what we do. And there are publishers out there who don't develop their own IP, like Zenescope does. So we could, like, what that means is there's a lot of publishers out there who publish other people's stories, and don't necessarily create their own stories in-house, where we do everything in-house, like almost like a network would. But we've had experiences in the past where our editor, like at one point in time, I was the editor-in-chief of Zenescope, and then I kind of moved on to do other stuff, film and TV development. But we would get a script in from an inexperienced writer that you wanted to work with, or you wanted to give a shot at writing, and you give them a chance to rewrite it a couple times. It's just not working. So eventually, as the editor-in-chief, I'd have to just, you know, almost rewrite this script entirely, or at least a big portion of that. Is that something that happens in and you don't have to mention on your show, of course, I'm just in general, like, is that something that could happen a lot, or where you're rewriting a writer who's just not getting it as a showrunner?
Yeah, I think that's the standard. You know, on every show that I've worked on, you know, there's at least some rewriting on things. Even when you become like a senior level writer, which I was on the last couple of shows that I was on, you can only get so close to the showrunner's vision. You can only get so inside their head that there's going to just always going to be a degree of rewriting. Usually when you're senior level, it's not that much, but yes, you get better at it as you go.
Have you seen it affect people's egos before?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. People, writers in general, I think, are very sensitive, wonderful creatures. I say that, you know, speaking of myself first and foremost. But I think when you are in the business of television, when you become a staff writer, you just have to know that part of you sitting at that table is that you may not have all the answers. First of all, you may not. Your approach may be awesome. You may come up with a brilliant idea, but it's just not what the showrunner wants to do for whatever reason. That doesn't mean that it wasn't good. That doesn't mean that it wasn't exciting. It just means that you are serving at the pleasure of the showrunner. Your job is to help them create their vision. And so I've seen people get really upset about, you know, having things rewritten. And it's just part of the process. It's something that I think writers have to learn not to take so personally.
Excuse me, choking. Pardon me, LaToya, don't laugh at me.
Drink some water.
Don't you laugh at me.
I can't do the Heimlich through the airwaves.
You cannot do the Heimlich via Zoom. You know, I wanted to ask you about The Walking Dead real quick, because you were on that. I don't know how long you were on Walking Dead, but I know you were on it after you kind of came in later, right? It was already a big hit.
I was on The Walking Dead season 9, and then I came back for season 11 as a consulting producer.
Oh, okay. I just was curious, like, your experience there. Like, what was it like? Was it weird? Is it ever weird? Like, I guess you've done it before, where you've come into a show that has already been established for a long time. What's that like, as opposed to like starting in a show that's like a brand new show? Is there a difference?
It's fun. No, I mean, I think, you know, I benefited from being a fan of The Walking Dead from the beginning. So I never stopped watching the show, even though I wasn't on the show. So it wasn't like I had a lot of catch up to do or anything like that. So when Angela Kang, who's the showrunner, invited me to come, the first time I came was to be a freelance writer to do an episode for them. I was like, absolutely. And so it was really fun to be a fly on the wall and like hear how they did their story, because every show does break story a little differently. and then to just, you know, be an advocate for the characters I love. Like, I'm a big, you know, Carol fan. I'm a big Daryl fan. I loved Michonne at the time when she was on the show.
Yeah. We froze for a second, guys.
So, it was fun.
Sorry, we froze for a quick second. No problem. We'll edit that out.
For me?
Yeah, just for it might have been my side. Yeah, it froze for like
your side froze. Yeah.
Was it my side? I don't know.
Yeah. Could you hear me? Could you hear what I said?
I heard almost all. You said you were a big fan of Michonne while she was on the show, and then it cut out for a second.
Yeah, so I was a big fan of, you know, Carol and Daryl and Michonne when she was on the show.
Right.
So it was really fun to get to come into the writer's room every day and talk about how to give those characters more story, because I was such a fan. And so it was really, I think of myself as, I think the reason why, you know, knock on wood, you know, I've gotten a chance to work a lot is because I try to be a Swiss Army knife. I know I'm really good with character, and I'm really good with story, and I love genre. So you can slot me into a lot of places, you know.
Right.
And so that's how I ended up getting the job on The Walking Dead, which was fun. That's how I ended up, you know, jumping onto season 2 of Into the Badlands, when they were looking for writers. But you know, Walking Dead was also special because it was the first time I got to work with a woman as a showrunner, and Angela Kang is incredible, and she's really great running that show. So I learned a lot from watching her work.
Also, Walking Dead cast was the most fun to ever party with, I have to say.
At Comic-Con?
I've met them many a time over the years at Comic-Con.
Listen, I have to say, speaking of Comic-Con, although I won't go to one for many years after this coronavirus stuff, but I have never had an experience, like, I've been to Comic-Con a bunch of times, most of the time doing Zenescope stuff, but you have not experienced Comic-Con until you have had the Walking Dead experience at Comic-Con. Going into Hall H for the Walking Dead was bonkers.
Yeah.
It was packed.
Yo, yeah. Full. The Sandy. So you're specifically Comic-Con. So San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah. Going into Hall H, having like everybody on stage, like people like awesome. Playing the preview. People were just going crazy.
People go nuts. Yeah, I've only hung out with the cast at like the small little Comic-Cons where there's not much, is not nearly as crazy, and then you're all literally at the same like hotel, and then you're all at the same hotel bar, and then suddenly you're just all drinking together. And that's where my experiences with a few of the cast members have unfolded. But they've always been the coolest cast to hang.
And they're all like super nice and very
they're all they're just like chill, cool dudes and gals. So that being said, I have a question, and I lost my place. Let's talk real quick, and before we're running a little short on time, but before I let you go, I wanted to ask you a few more things. So we'll touch on comic books because this month we are talking. It's our Robyn Hood theme month, and you wrote Robyn Hood: The Hunt.
Yes.
That was your only Robyn Hood, right? Yeah.
That was my only Robyn Hood, and it's the best Robyn Hood, I gotta say.
It's the best Robyn Hood ever.
I'm just saying, because I did it.
Robyn Hood: The Hunt. You also had LaToya's written Grim Tales of Terror as well, issues, which Black Cat is one of my favorites.
Black Cat.
Love that issue.
Yeah. Also did Goddess Inc.
Goddess Inc.
That series for you guys, which was wonderful.
Right. Which I still want to be a show at some point.
It could be.
What was it like writing Robyn Hood? I mean, without pretend you're not talking to one of the Robyn Hood creators.
No, it was fun. Robyn Hood is probably my favorite of the Grimm canvas because she's so badass. She's so smart alecky. She is brave. I love that it's a twist on, that old idea, which needed some freshening up, to be honest.
Yeah.
And writing The Hunt specifically was great because as soon as she was on that prison planet, I was like, yes, because I really love like all those old 1970s prison movies. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be like, Pam Grier and like the Big Bird Cage or like
Right.
the Big Doll House. That
Right.
was one of my truest influences. And careful readers, you will see my Stephen King influences in the pages, because when Robyn Hood she's taken to her cell, like her cellmate is reading different seasons. And so it's just those little like Easter eggs that you put
Which is
in.
a Grim Universe. It's also a Grim Universe title, by the way. Okay.
Different seasons?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's not related to.
Oh, well, this one is because Shawshank Redemption is based on a short story called Hope Springs Eternal, and that's in different seasons. So that was my little Easter egg for that. But it was a lot of fun. I love gritty action. I loved getting a chance to have Robyn face off with some of her enemies, from the past, who had been giving her a lot of trouble. And then, of course, we have great twists in there, and it was fun working on it with you guys.
Well, thanks for working on it with us. And we're going to try to work on more stuff with LaToya when she's done, rubbing elbows with this JJ dude.
Anytime,
I mean, she might be a little bit busy show running this. Whatever. I guess a question I had asked when we had Neil LaBute on last time. I asked him his biggest challenge, what his favorite part of writing was, and the reason I asked this is because I hate, like, as a comic book writer, I haven't written on the level of yourself or Neil LaBute, of course, nor have I written under that sort of pressure, probably. But my least favorite part is like that first. I call it the vomit draft. I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yeah.
Neil LaBute never heard vomit draft before, which shocked me. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna credit that to you. That's awesome." I'm like, "Do not credit that to me, because that's awesome." But I hate the vomit draft. It really is a challenge for me. What is your favorite part and your least favorite part about the actual writing process? What'd you say?
My favorite and least favorite are kind of the same thing. There always comes a moment when you're trying to, crank out a draft, and there's nothing that terrifies me and inspires me more than that blinking cursor on a blank page. It is so just daunting. And so that's why when I write, I try to start off writing by hand in like a notebook or something, and that's how I get my juices flowing and get the story started. But there's always this moment that usually for me comes around 2:00 in the morning, when I'm trying to solve a problem in the story, or trying to fix something, or trying to come up with an idea, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm totally going to fail and crash and burn. And then at the same time, like a breath later, I'm always thinking like, wow, how lucky am I that this is my job, to problem solve, to think of this, to make up stories for a living. So it's that push and pull of being like, oh my God, terrified that I'm not going to be able to come up with something. And then usually somehow, some way, something does come. So it is both sides of the coin in that moment.
Interesting. I have to start looking at it that way. When I'm throwing my computer, I'm like, no, I'm never gonna do it. Why do I even want to write?
It's hard. Look,
it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. It doesn't come easy to me. I always appreciate when people have that talent. For me, I felt like when I was growing up, or really starting to figure out what I wanted to do for a living, I always felt like I when I started acting, like, let's say when I first started acting, got into that always felt a little bit more, I fit, like that puzzle piece fit for me.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh, I can do this. I know how to do this naturally.
Yeah.
Writing story, I always felt strong, like when I'm creating story concepts and coming up with ideas, that's always felt like a fit for me. I've always been able to get like, oh, I can, like when we come up with our characters or our titles, like I'm like, oh, that's easy. I could put this together and this fits. With the writing, for me, it never fit nearly as easy. I feel like it was it's so much more of a challenge, and doesn't necessarily. I'm not saying that makes me a bad writer. It's not like something I should be, shouldn't be doing. But
no, of course not.
But it's not. It's something I feel like for me, I'm always like trying to work on because it doesn't. And I think like anything you do, obviously you always have to work at it.
Yeah, but I think that that comes like writing has always been very natural for me. It's been, it's the oxygen that I breathe. It comes like that to me. But I still try to get better at it. I read a ton of scripts. I read books. I try to come at story from a different angle and a different perspective, because I think that's our job as writers. You can give 10 different writers like the same scenario of whatever, a man on a beach, he's just standing there. Somebody's going to turn that into a horror story. Somebody's going to turn that into a sci-fi. Like, that's the beauty of writing, is the details, and how you make it specific and how you give it that emotional roller coaster. And I think, that's our challenge.
It's, yeah. I mean, and what's insane is like, I think about like how somebody like Stephen King, for example, this guy cranks out like a book a week. Like, I'm like, who does this? It takes me like months to write a comic book.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I mean, like, it is interesting, like, having natural ability or natural talent, or feeling like this is what you should be doing is awesome. But there's always work involved in doing, 100%. Getting to, making yourself better all the time, I think.
Yeah, and I think that applies to every trade too.
Yeah, every trade, right, of course. So I want to, let's touch on the thing I'm most curious about. What, I don't want to presume you can tell us much, but what can you tell us about your new show that you're show running with JJ, with JJ Abrams, everybody, not JJ Walker.
Yes, the great JJ Abrams. I'm so incredibly lucky to be working with him, and I'm so grateful. He is probably one of the most fun and generous and kind people I've gotten a chance to collaborate with, in my short stint in Hollywood. But the show, Duster, is really about, it's set in the 1970s, and I'm super excited about it. First of all, I forgot to say that at the top, but it's set in the 1970s, and it is about a getaway driver for this crime syndicate, and he has like a really bad life, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And so it's kind of like that dark, like comedic tone. It's very Scorsese, Tarantino-esque. It's really fun, really high octane, and we're going to be doing it for HBO Max, so be on the lookout for it. Why are you just...
I'm just jealous. I just got so jealous when I heard it. I think that's exactly up my alley. I'm jealous, but I'm also excited. I'm jealous just because I want to be involved in this. Because I'm hearing it like, oh my God, that's such a cool concept. Why did I come up with this idea? But I think JJ, it's probably in good hands with you and JJ.
Yes.
Such a cool concept. One of my favorite movies, I don't know if it's anything like this, but one of my favorite movies is Drive.
It has like the Drive vibes. He's kind of like that guy, a little more funny, a little more animated though. But definitely Drive vibes.
Have you started casting it all, or no? You can't talk about that.
I cannot talk about it, but I will. The affirmative. I'll just put it that way.
Okay.
Yes, but I can't say any more about it. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
I don't care.
Nobody cares, LaToya.
Yes, you do. Shut up.
I don't want to know who's starring in it unless you want to tell us. I mean, whatever.
I will say that just like there's an element of the show that's just natural, which is like all the car stuff, which is so fun. Just the world of the cars from that time. Like we talk about Bullet all the time.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking that when you said that.
Yeah, we talk about that.
Is this a totally original idea, or is this based on something? Okay.
Totally original idea. JJ and I had a meeting. He read a script that I'd written, and he really loved it. He asked to meet me. We sat down and we talked about this idea, and we just started gelling. We just started pitching, and it was just a lot of fun. And so we knew that this was the one that we wanted to do together.
Wow. And then you pitched him. You told him about Zenescope, and he said he said he wanted to write for us. I think I heard that.
That's coming next.
Yeah. He said he wanted to do the Duster comic book with Zenescope. You guys heard it here first. I don't even know, because you're probably like, no, so-and-so's doing it already. So we're going to skip over this part. Or actually, I'm going to edit this whole part out. Oh my God. I'm kidding. Okay. What? That's not, no, it honestly sounds awesome. What, when the 2022 are we looking for?
Yep,
or
2022.
Okay, got it. I will be first in line at HBO Max.
Thank you.
I'm actually, well, it's going to, I mean, sounds amazing. It's with amazing creators, and it's on HBO Max, which HBO usually puts out amazing stuff. So we're in good hands. I'm actually rewatching Sopranos right now.
Yeah, so good.
And what was the other thing I'm watching? I forget. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. What? Okay, are you ready to do Fast Five? I think I call it something else. What was I calling it before?
Oh, is this like on the actor studio where they ask the 5 questions? Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. You have 5 seconds to answer.
Okay.
Each question.
Okay.
Okay.
I hope no regrets.
If you get anything, if you screw up, there's horrible ramifications. Okay. You grew up in Los Angeles. I forgot to mention that. So let's pretend I'm new to LA. Mm-hmm. I meet LaToya. Mm-hmm. I want a food recommendation. Where do you send me?
Oh my God.
First
okay,
place.
I'll just say I only have 5 seconds, so I'll just say my favorite, which is a place called Mercado, and it just has really good food.
Mercado the one in West Hollywood, because there's one in Universal.
There's one in the Valley. And
right near me. The one near me. We're at all the time.
Yes, it's so good. It's really
the best. I didn't even know. Do you go to the one near me, or do you go to?
I go to the one near you.
Oh, because are you in Burbank for work?
Yeah.
I hate you. I've never been to Mercado with you.
Oh my God, I forgot that you. I know, like that. Like,
I go there all the time.
All the time. I love it. It's my jam.
Jesus Christ, they have the best.
With the carnitas.
Did you ever get the carnita? Oh my God, they're carnitas and the jalapeno. I get this jalapeno cucumber
margarita. Yeah, it's so good.
Okay, good. That's your first answer is the right answer. You get a point.
Good.
Did you have a backup answer? I can't believe Mercado.
No, Mercado's that's the best.
You know what? The one, and I will say this, I've been to both, and the one in the Valley I like better.
I mean, if you wanted like real LA food, I would say Phillips barbecue spot in LA. Amazing.
Okay.
Oh my God, the best.
Put that on the list. This is sort of one you've heard a million times, but I throw it in here because you wrote comic books. You wrote some superhero comics. So what superpower would you choose if you could choose one?
Oh, that's hard. I only get one?
Yeah.
I guess invincibility, but like my true first answer was telekinesis. I love it.
So that's your answer, telekinesis.
I'm saying invincibility.
You can't pick, you said.
I'm saying I want to be invincible. I want to be.
So you'd rather do invincibility.
Yeah.
Invincible. Is that the same as? But that doesn't mean you're immortal, does it?
I hope. That's the only reason why I'm picking it.
You want immortality.
Yeah.
You want to be invincible, and that's a good one. Yeah, no one usually picks that. Like, who would pick like invisibility or something?
Oh yeah, people probably pick that, or like that they can fly.
Because they're creeps. Invisibility.
After Invisible Man, though, you can see how that could go very, very wrong.
I guess if you could turn it on and off.
Yeah.
But that's not interesting to me. Why do I care about that? Doesn't make any sense. I like yours. Okay, 2 for 2.
Okay.
What's your favorite action movie all time?
Oh, that's hard.
I know it is.
I don't know why this is in my head right now. It's not really an action movie either. I'm just gonna say it, The Matrix. It's not even an action movie, but it just popped into my head.
It's it's a phenomenal movie. That would be. I mean, it's sci-fi, but it's also
sci-fi, but it's not. I guess. So
That
yeah,
could, I'll let that slide. I mean, that's fine. That'll count.
yeah.
I'm trying to think of like yeah. I mean, it's got the genre elements, but that's fine. You get a pass. What would LaToya be doing for a living if it wasn't writing?
I would. Do I only pick one? I would either be a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
which I always thought I would be a teacher, or I would work in politics in like some senator or congressperson's office.
Or president.
President
Morgan. Maybe
I
you still
used
can.
to, when I was a kid, I used to want to be the first female president.
You still, yeah, there's time.
There is, unfortunately.
Right.
I'm just saying, we should have passed this milestone already. Like, come on.
Hey, but look, it's still it's open for you. That's the
good
news. That's the silver lining.
Silver lining.
Okay, here's a weird one. Last one.
All right.
If you could live inside of a movie or TV world, either a movie or a television world, what world would you pick? I just made that up right before this interview. I didn't even steal that from someone. I'm sure it's been asked before, but it's kind of based on our series, The Library, where the kids go into the worlds of the books around them. I
don't know why I would want. This is the weirdest answer, and this should not be my answer, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. I would want to, just because it's so freaking funny, I would want to live inside the Golden Girls universe.
So, okay, I have some follow-up questions. It's a good answer.
It's so funny.
So you want to live, so because they live in this world, essentially.
Yeah.
So you want to just be part of their world. You want to be
I just want to be like the neighbor or something.
Right.
Whoever brings them like
the Golden Girls.
Yeah, okay. Bring them like food, bring them Mercado, like
bring them Mercado. I don't think they live in LA. But
I don't know. They live in Florida, but I'm just saying. And Florida's a whole other dramas, which is I'm like, why? Who would want to live there? But
I don't know.
My backup answer though truly is I don't know if people have seen this show. But if you have not seen it, you should. There's this really hilarious show called Living Single. And I just would want to be like in the apartment and be able to go up to Max's house and go to Khadijah's apartment and like be all in the business. I love that show. That's
funny. Okay, so you still want to live in this grounded real world with these?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was doing because I was rewatching Sopranos, and I was like, when I watch it, it reminds me so much of like my Italian American heritage. Not that I was in the mob, but the concepts that like you some of the people in it, you're like, oh my god, I kind of know that dude. Especially because I'm from Philly and they're based in North Jersey, and it's like that's what got me thinking about this like sort of question, like living in that.
Totally, like I wouldn't like when people say, I wouldn't want to be in like The Expanse or like any type, like when it's like starts getting too sci-fi, I'm like, no, I know I just know it's trouble. It's gonna be trouble. I just know
it's a lot of trouble. There's a lot of work. I wouldn't know what to do in The Expanse. Like, what am I gonna do for a living?
Like, imagine if I wanted to live in Game of Thrones. First of all, where's the black?
Oh no, it'd be horrible. What are you talking about? You don't even have running water.
Exactly.
No, there's no world I want to live in the Game of Thrones. There's none of that crap. I want future could work because like you got some cool tech you can deal with.
And as long as it's not like Black Mirror or something like that.
No,
it's gonna be bad.
You don't pick a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. That's a good. I'm gonna keep this question.
That's a good question.
But your final answer was Golden.
No, I'm like one. This is why you love me. This is why you love me.
I do. Golden Girls.
My final answer is Living Single. My final answer.
Okay,
my first thought was
you failed that question then because Living Single was like way after the 5 seconds. Golden Girls, you felt if you hit.
Because you laughed at me.
No, you don't let me shame you in this.
Listen, it was actually what shamed me was Florida. I was like, oh yeah, I don't want to be.
Well, yeah, you'd have to be in Florida.
Yeah, can't do it.
Yeah. Living Single. It is. Right. All right, LaToya, listen, I do appreciate you coming on. I know you're very busy, and I probably pestered you for this interview, and you're like, "Why is Ralph texting me?" I get it.
It's never pestering. It's very polite asking, and I'm always happy to do it.
We were supposed to get a drink for, I don't know. We were supposed to have a Zoom happy hour.
We were, but wait, talk about the drink, because we were supposed to get a drink, and then all this happened, and then we were like,
all this happened. I went through like my own. I had a worse 2020 because I had this stupid autoimmune thing happen to me. I had the freaking Rona.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And I was the safest person I think I knew.
Yeah.
Unreal.
That's why I have been in my little cubby hole. I have not really come out of it, and I'm gonna stay in there.
You're like,
until someone gives us the all clear, I'm staying.
Is it? I have a question, real quick, and because I know we're over time, and Mark's probably gonna kill me when he's editing this, but one more question is interesting with you show running. You guys are in the room now. I assume you started while COVID was already happening, right?
Yeah, we started the initial room, when COVID started.
So you're never in the room in person with anybody right now.
No.
Is that
harder?
harder?
I met JJ before
that,
all this, but yeah, it just you just have to roll with it,
Is it? Do you find it like equally as effective, or is it harder, or is it?
I don't think it's harder. I think their Zoom fatigue is real. Constantly staring at people on screens is not how we're genetically made up. So it's really hard to do that. So I try to be humane with the office hours and like when we're on Zoom. And I personally really love the writer's room. So actual physical writer's room, being in a room with everyone and being able to feel if a story point is working or not. And just having an actual board to put stuff up on would be nice, but we roll with what we have, and Zoom has been a great surrogate, and I'm grateful that we have it so that we can keep working, because that's not every industry does not have that luxury. So this is something that we shouldn't take for granted.
There you go.
Yeah,
you've said it all.
Well, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thank you for coming on. It was fun.